All right, welcome everybody to today's Tech Talk with Lynette Coulston of IT and Coffee. Lynette and I know each other through a business network that we're both part of, and Lynette has helped me with a bunch of my own IT problems. And one of the great things about Lynette is she knows Mac computers inside out, which a lot of IT folks don't. But she knows both, don't you? You really use both all the time.
Yep.
And yeah, Lynette's got she's done a bunch of trainings and presentations for lots of different groups, and particularly likes to work with small business like us in our world. And you were saying before we started recording that you've got a lot of queries about OneDrive at the moment, particularly for Mac. So there might be a mixture of people here who are keen to learn about OneDrive, and also those who are already using it who want to get a bit more out of it. So hopefully we can give you all a bit of an overview. And the focus today being particularly on secure file sharing, which is, of course, really important in our world. And a lot of us, could be using OneDrive, but not using it to its best, functionality for secure file sharing. For those of you who are not on it and want to know about it, you'll see how easy it is. But anyway, I'll hand over to Lynette in a moment, but for those who missed it earlier, just put in the chat box whether you're on a PC or Mac. And also for regular attendees, you will know you can type in questions into the chat box or into the Q&A, and we will do our best to attend to those through the webinar. And we'll also have a little bit of time at the end for any other questions that people might want to ask. So, Lynette, over to you. We've got a lot of PCs.
Thank you.
A lot of PCs, actually.
Well, yeah, a lot of PCs, but a few Windows. I mean, few Mac I can see there as well. All right. And look, it is much the same on both, so there's not too much that we have to talk about as being different.
Yeah. A couple of people on both. Scott, well done. You're on a Mac for a week. Okay, we'll hand over formally to Lynette. Take it away.
All right, and say a prayer to the Zoom gods, because I have had issues with shares that I think are fixed now, but let me know if at any point my presentation seems to stop on your screen and not be progressive. Please let me know. Joe, just keep an eye on that for me if you wouldn't mind. I've got a computer waiting here just in case there's any issues. So I'm just going to fire up my presentation, which hopefully you can see now. All right, so this is actually a cut down version of a presentation that I do as part of something called our Bootcamp series. We've got Bootcamp series for Microsoft 365, 1 hour or 1.5 hour classes on Microsoft topics on Excel, Word, OneDrive. So what I've tried to do in this, it's normally like 3 hours solid of content that we cover, but I've just tried to pick out some key things that I find a lot of people are not quite aware of. They may not have discovered about OneDrive. I won't go right back to the very beginning of OneDrive. We'll just assume that you know a little bit. I do have resources if you do need to go back to the very beginning to learn a bit more. And I've got on the slideshow that I'm showing here, you'll be able to access or request access to this via my website. There's a link there that I'll show you at the end as well, and Joe will pop this in the chat. So yeah, you can look at it later if you do want to relive any of these slides later. And of course, there'll be the recording too. So these are the topics that I thought of to talk about today. First of all, are you using OneDrive? Hopefully you are. If you're not, you'll get a little bit of an insight into OneDrive and what it can do. Why would you use it, and why should you use it a lot? How are you accessing it? That's a really key thing. How are you getting to your OneDrive? Are you going to a web browser to access it, or are you actually using it on your computer, integrated into your file explorer or your Finder. And importantly, if you're doing that, discovering this thing called on-demand storage, making sure that if you need to, you're using that to optimize your storage. This has come up just this morning with a client with this problem on Mac, where there's been some issues in relation to this. So I'll try and touch on that for you, for those of you who are on Mac. Talking about then making sure, before we get into talking about sharing, making sure you understand how to, any folder that's shared with you by someone else, how you can make sure that is part of the set of files that you see in your OneDrive on your computer. And how you can, if you've got SharePoint, I'll touch on the difference between SharePoint, OneDrive, how you can get to multiple accounts, multiple SharePoint accounts. If you've got multiple businesses you work with, maybe accounts with each of them, you can sync all of those to your computer. How you can choose what libraries, document libraries within SharePoint you can sync. Of course, just touching on these, because these are all bigger topics, but just to touch on them so that you know what's possible. How OneDrive can come to your rescue when things go wrong. Where's my sharing on that link? So at least sometimes I think I've lost sharing. Sharing is a big part of what we're going to do today, how you can share things and share things securely, especially if you've got a business account with OneDrive. If you are using Word, Excel, PowerPoint, integrating, I know Excel's probably a big app amongst this group, and so how you can make sure you've got integration with that. Just touching on a couple of issues you can come across with that. Making sure you've got OneDrive on your mobile. And lastly, but not the least importantly, one of the most importantly for all of us is making sure you've ensured the security of your OneDrive beyond just having a password on it. So just setting the context for OneDrive. OneDrive, of course, is cloud storage. Dropbox, OneDrive, iCloud, Google Drive, they're all delivering the same sort of service, just different providers. But if you are, you might be a Dropbox user and not OneDrive. I used to be Dropbox, but it's all the same principles. You'll find if you've got Dropbox and you're watching this, there'll be the same sort of capabilities for Dropbox as well. So we're not going to cover them today, but it's really good to know that all of these tools work in the same sort of way. And it's absolutely fine and worthwhile to have each of those clouds in your own sky. You don't just have, I don't just have OneDrive. That's where my business files and personal files are, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDFs, all that sort of stuff. But my photos are in iCloud. I work in Dropbox because I collaborate with other clients. I have Google Drive. That's where my client database is. So it's, and Evernote is my everything else, you know, receipts and various other things. So you can have multiple clouds in your sky, and it's not a bad idea at all. But I do come across people regularly who don't really realise the power of OneDrive in terms of accessing their OneDrive, that they will access it via their web browser. And I know even in business, a lot of business people have just a personal OneDrive. You can get a personal OneDrive with 1 terabyte when you get a Microsoft 365 license. And I know a lot of people in business just go with that because it gives you up to 5 computers, 6 users can use the same account. It's a very economical solution. So you go to onedrive.live.com to access that. If you've got the business OneDrive, quick access to it from office.com, that will get you there, and you'll see OneDrive as your set of options. So that's great. You can then access your OneDrive from anywhere. And there'll be times when you need to go there, maybe to recover some files that you've otherwise deleted, because that's a great thing about Dropbox. Security-wise, you've got that assurance that your files and your version history is maintained if you accidentally delete something or change something incorrectly. You've also got ransomware protection, which is a wonderful thing that you can revert to an earlier version of everything if you ever got caught out by ransomware. So there's some great protections from OneDrive. But for me, for most people, I would suggest the best way to access your OneDrive, same applies for Dropbox, Google Drive, any of those cloud type of products, is to have your files integrated with your computer so that they're stored on your computer in your file Explorer or your Finder, And they're then just a folder, just another folder that you interact with in the same way as you do any other folder. And you're making, by just putting files in your OneDrive, you're ensuring that you're getting a constant backup of those files. But also, if you integrate them with your File Explorer, your Finder, you can have them offline. So if you're, say, working at a client site, you've got your files whether or not you've got internet. And when you reconnect, they'll resync back to your cloud. Whereas if you've got them only accessed via the web browser, you don't have that chance to work with them offline. You've got to have internet all the time. And it also means there's all the features that you have in Finder and File Explorer are available to you for all of your OneDrive files. They're just like any other folder, except there is a difference. They're like any other, but they've got something extra. So I'm just showing here a view of my Windows File Explorer and my OneDrive for IT and Coffee. And you'll see there that it's just another folder in Finder. But what's special about it is it actually shows me that it's got a connection with my OneDrive cloud. And this is showing me some information, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, about whether my files are stored on my computer or whether they're cloud-based and they're what's called on demand. So we'll have a look at that in just a moment and what we mean by that. So in terms of getting that up and running, getting your OneDrive working on your computer, you have the OneDrive app. On Windows, it's built in and you've just got to sign into your OneDrive. And on Mac, you've got to install the OneDrive app and again, sign in with your OneDrive. And once you do that, you get the thing about OneDrive and Dropbox, all of those clouds, is you get a little icon. On Windows, it's in your system tray down the bottom right, blue for business OneDrive, grey for personal OneDrive. So you can see there I've got both. In fact, I have 3 OneDrives going at once because I've got another business that I've got a OneDrive for. On the Mac, it's just a cloud in your menu bar at the top. And there's no difference in colour on Mac. You can't tell which is which just by looking at them. You have to actually hover over to see which is which. But what that little cloud is doing is showing you that you've got the OneDrive process running in the background of your computer, constantly syncing and looking after your files. So you always just want to have a quick peek at that on a regular basis. On Mac lately especially, there's something that Microsoft have done to break something in OneDrive. I had a problem again this morning. So if you see a cross on it, or it has a sync symbol that doesn't seem to go away, those 2 arrows in a circle, it means that something might be going wrong. So always click on that to have a look and see what's going wrong. But also what you have from that cloud is the ability to peer into your cloud, to look into your OneDrive cloud. And you'll see when you click on that little icon, you get your options along the bottom and they give you quick access to your OneDrive folder on your computer, to jump into your web version of your OneDrive, to jump to the OneDrive page in your web browser. But importantly, you've got your help and settings. And you've got some options there, slightly different for business versus personal. But it's your settings that is really important. There's some really important settings in there, so it's really worth having an explore of your OneDrive settings, because that's where you make sure that you've established that OneDrive should start every time you turn on your computer. And you choose various other things in terms of notifications, and have a click through each of the options along the top. We'll look at some of them as we go through today, but there are lots of options relating to your OneDrive. But the important one I want to talk about to start with comes with managing the storage on your computer. A client this morning, because of this issue with Mac, OneDrive on Mac, found that suddenly all her files that were previously using a feature called On Demand had suddenly become stored, and then were using up all her hard drive space and her computer was full. If you've got a computer where you struggle with the storage, then you have this wonderful feature that normally works really well, except for this week, called Files on Demand. And so this is what it looks like on Windows. There's an option down the bottom, Files on Demand. Similar on Mac, just looks a slight bit different button. And when you click that, what you're doing is you're saying, I want to be able to choose which files and folders are stored on my computer and which ones aren't. So for me, I've got a heap of old family movies from when the kids were young, all sort, gigabytes and gigabytes of files and things that I actually don't need on this computer right now. And so what I do is I choose to make them on demand. And so I've turned on that feature. And then what I do for any folder that I want to not store on my device, have it just in my cloud and available to me whenever I need it, I would choose free up space. If there's folders that I'm working on all the time at the moment, or that perhaps I need access to when I go to a client site or go away, I would choose always keep on this device. And by choosing between those things, you can really easily manage your file storage. So you can have all your files visible to you. They're all there in the list. And then they're on demand. If you need them, you can double click and it will download them for you if they're only cloud-based at that point in time. And so you see then, once you've turned on that on-demand feature, some different symbols that represent the sync status of your files. The cloud means they're in the cloud. They're not on your computer right now. But if you just double click to open that file or folder, well, for folders, it'll just open the folder. But if you double click to open a file, it'll bring that file into your computer. And then once it's been downloaded, if it was on demand and it's been downloaded, it gets the green tick that isn't filled in. So that means it's stored right now. But if your computer needs to be optimized for storage, there's some settings, especially on Windows, where it can actually offload things if it gets too full. That's part of have a look at your settings. I think if you look at optimizing your settings, you can actually say offload things I don't need to keep. If it's got the unfilled circle, it will be automatically optimized if ever necessary. So if you need that file to stay, you should right click on it and say always keep on this device. So the filled in means you've chosen always keep on this device. The cloud means not stored, as I just said. The two arrows means it's currently in the process of syncing, doing something to download it, upload it, or remove it, whatever you've chosen in terms of its on-demand status. And if it's got a little person on it, as you can see, I've got a few in my list that have got that, then it means it's shared with someone else. And we're going to look at how you can see who did you share it with, because sometimes you want to actually go back and see what was that share, copy the link again, see, if it's got there's some parameters you can set for shares. And so we'll have a look at what all that sharing means. Before we get to that though, there is another option. And this is one that I did with a client just this morning. Where you do have folders that you really never want to sync to your computer or to this particular computer. So maybe it's a laptop with not much storage capacity. You can say, in the example of family videos that are large files, you can actually choose from your settings. So click in your cloud and come to help and settings, and your account option along the top, it has an option for you to choose the folders that you sync. This is the option that's been there for years before they created the on-demand feature. This was how you chose which things should take up space on your computer. So click choose folders and you'll see the list of all the folders. Untick the ones you don't need, and you can expand by clicking the left arrow to see the content. So you can just choose folders within folders. And these settings are for the device. Deborah's just asked, are they for the device or per account? So this is just on this device. So you can have different settings for these, for the choose folders and the on demand for your different devices. Now, has anyone got any questions? I think, no, we're all good on that. Okay, so a quick look at sharing. Sharing, this is one of the key things I love about OneDrive, any cloud service, is that ability to share just a link. You create a share link to a folder, say, could be just a file, but you can also do it to a whole folder. And then you share that link, and that could be gigabytes of data that you're actually sharing, but all you're sharing is a link. And when that person receives the link that you've shared, it opens a web page that shows them all those files. And depending on how you've shared, what sort of link you've created, that share will be to just view those files. Option maybe download, because you can prevent download. You'll see the presentation I've shared with you. I've shared it with you, but I have blocked download, so you can only view it via the web browser. So if you've got content you want to protect, it'll stop people printing it, it'll stop people downloading it. So there's some really great security features there. That's only for business OneDrive accounts. You can also set dates to say that this link should expire on a particular date. And for real security, you can set a password. So you could share a folder with someone and then separately, not in the same email, maybe over the phone, you can give them the password. And so that's a really good way of making sure that only the person that you're sharing with can access the content that you're sharing. And the easiest way to share, you can do it from the web browser. You can absolutely do it from there at any point as well. But I want to focus on doing it from your computer. And from your computer, it's by right-clicking and choosing share. You'll see a share. It's the share that has the cloud, the blue cloud on the left of it, the OneDrive share, because there is another share if you're on Mac. You'll see the share word is there, which means the Mac share. We want to share using the OneDrive share. And when you do that, what it will present to you is what the parameters of the defaults are for the share for that link. And it will usually be based on what you did last time. I think that's right anyway, but always check it. Always have a look at what's in, I've got a pink box here. Always look at what's in that box, because if that is correct, say if I'm sharing a link to this maybe set of folders and I want the person on the other end to be able to edit that set of files, contribute, delete, work on those files with me, I would just either copy the link and paste it into an email or text or whatever it is that I'm sending it, however I'm sending it to them, or I can actually put in their email address and email it to them. And it's as quick as that to share content via OneDrive. But I always click on the link to have a look at what the settings are, just out of habit. It forces me to think about, am I sharing for edit purposes or am I sharing for just view purposes? So if I click on that box, you get to see what the link settings are. Now, what I'm showing here first is the personal OneDrive. And if I don't want the person to be able to touch my files, I have to turn off allow editing. And that turns that into a view only link. And depending on what I'm sharing, I might see some other options, but I've got at least the set expiration date. So that means you can create a link that will expire. And that's a good security precaution. I always do that with my links. I don't want them to be there forever. And you can set the password. So it's as simple as that. And then you would say apply, and then you'd be sent back to this first screen and it'll show you what the parameters now are for that link. And again, you can fill in the person's name, add a message, send, or copy the link and paste it into your email. So it really is quick and easy to do a share. For business, if you've got a business Microsoft 365 account, you do get some other options, and I do tend to use these in a lot of cases. So, oh, sorry, jumped ahead there. Yep, no, jump back, jump forward. So what you get if you've got a business account is that you can leave it as anyone who has the link can access those files, those folders, according to the parameters of that link, and you set those down below. But you can also have some other choices that you can limit it to just people in your company. You can limit it to people who have already got access. You can nominate specific email addresses. They don't have to be in your company. In saying that, that will depend on your company security profile, because in Microsoft 365, you can prevent people from sharing content with outside people. So that will be dependent on how your company is set up. If you've got control of that, you can, if you are responsible for your Microsoft 365 admin or have someone that can do that for you, you can open that up if it's currently not open. But you can nominate specific people, and when that person gets the email, they will click a link and it will actually send them a code or a link to I can't remember now, to their email account. So they have to have access to the email account that you've chosen to be able to access the link. So that is a lot more secure than sharing it with sharing a more general link. And business users, this is a really handy one if you've got stuff you just want to show to people but you don't want them to download. As I mentioned before, you can block the download, so you can stop them from downloading that file. And then if you've shared something, you get a little share symbol, little person symbol on the icon that's in your File Explorer or your Finder. And also importantly, because this is something that a lot of people don't know, once you have shared a link, you can look at what you have shared in the past. So the ... shows you, lets you manage access and see all the links you've created in the past. And there's little calendar icons that will show you, if you click on any of these, you can actually see how you shared. You can see, actually, I'm not sure with the personal one whether you can, but the business one, you can see what date did you set, you know, what were the parameters that you set for that particular share. So I know that's a lot, but it's, you know, have a look at that share option and familiarize yourself with the options that you do have there. And if someone shares a folder with you, it's important to know how to get that folder on into your set of files. If you want to be able to collaborate with them and work with them on your desktop, if they have allowed that, then you can, depending on whether it's personal, business, all that sort of stuff. There's caveats on that, but generally if something's been shared with you, you may be able to add it to your OneDrive. If you've got a personal OneDrive account, you basically, what you do is you go to your online OneDrive, you click your little view online from your settings or from your cloud, and you can see your shared, everything that's been shared with you. Have a look there. You'll see everything that has been shared with you in the past. It's amazing what you find there that you haven't deleted. So I actually had to go back when I was writing this and do a huge deletion. But if there's something that's in your shared that you're not seeing on your desktop, you may be able to sync it. So if you click on it, you will see that you get the option to add to my OneDrive. So up the top, see how it says add to my OneDrive, and then it appears as if it's a set in your set. So it will be synced to your desktop then, or synced to your File Explorer or Finder, so that you have access to it as well from that from your computer without having to be in your web browser. If you've got something that you've been using in the past that you don't want, you can remove it from your OneDrive. So that's also worth knowing, is available via your web browser. And talking about how you get all the OneDrives that you're working with onto your computer. If you've got a personal OneDrive, but you've also got a business OneDrive or vice versa, you can have both. And that is by using whichever OneDrive you're currently using, the cloud in the dock, and going to your settings for that OneDrive, coming to your accounts, add it. You can add that account and then you sign in with that other account and you'll see both OneDrives then. And you can have a set of folders for each of your OneDrives showing on your computer. I'll say that that's only for business though. You can't have multiple personal accounts. So just be aware of that. And so you can see here, this is where I can see what my OneDrive folders are. I've got my business one, my personal one, and then there's another business one that I work with as well. And then there's also the option, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this gets into more complex territory. If you've got a bigger business that maybe has something called SharePoint libraries, you can share those libraries to your desktop depending on the security policies that apply to your business's Office 365. And so to do that, you visit your online OneDrive. And you can, if from your OneDrive, you may see something like this, where you've got the name of the libraries that have been shared with you. You can choose one of them and you can sync it to your desktop, to your computer. Or if you don't see things that are shared with you, sometimes you go via, there'll be a SharePoint option in the sidebar, and it'll show you all the libraries that are available to you. You click on any of those libraries and you look for that sync symbol at the top to sync those libraries to your computer. And then you'll see on a Windows computer, a library, a SharePoint library that's shared in that way has a little sort of building symbol to indicate that it's a shared library, as distinct from your personal OneDrive account for that business. So there's that concept of your own stuff in the business, which you might share with other people, but then there's libraries that are sort of shared more broadly within your business. Am I running out of time? Should I keep going?
No, I just want to interrupt there, just going back to sharing of folders and files, and thinking about, so for example, what we were talking about before is you know, you could use for clients or contractors or employees.
Yep.
What happens then when you, let's say you have a contractor leave and you don't want them to have any access? So how do you then manage that sharing?
That is the tricky thing. Yeah. So when you're in a business situation, that is something you have to be really cognizant of, because if it's on their computer, there is nothing to stop them taking copies. And when you unlink the OneDrive, the files stay behind. I'm not sure if there are policies on that. There may be policies on that, but once a file is on a computer, it can be copied. You know, it's stored on the computer. So you've really got to think about that. And then think about then, if you've got someone working with you, do you supply the computer that you get back from them? And then you've got to think about USB stick. You know, it's one of those things. It's a tricky one to manage. If ever you go past accessing things via a web browser, you've got to be aware of, you know, all of that sort of, all the issues with privacy of your files.
Let's say we share a link and we do set the expiration date, or we change it to say, oh, they've resigned today, I'm going to change all of those, you know, whatever links, shared links to expiring today. Is that useful?
I would generally, I wouldn't share in that way. Yeah, look, it's a really tricky one to answer. I'd have to have a look at that. You'd still leave behind the files because you've shared the link and the files have been synced to the computer. It sort of might remove the connection, and it's no longer in their OneDrive. But I'd have to look at that. Yeah, certainly would have to consider that. And I know in some businesses, you know, the owners just say, look, I'll give you a computer. And that's sort of and the stuff can only be on that computer, not on your own computer.
Yeah. For a lot of people in our world where I guess there's still a lot of us that are solo operators, or we might have a very small team where we've got, say, you know, a couple of contractors that work with us, and, you know, then we're sharing things with them and clients, and, you know, so how... That's probably a bigger question. Maybe that's another session.
It is a bigger question. Maybe that's another session, yeah.
How to manage all of that access and to try to keep control over the things that we create for our business, but that we're actually sharing with other people.
Yeah,
I guess for today...
And I think that's where you sort of, anything that you don't want someone to have ongoing access to, you've got to share as sort of online view only.
Yes.
Not able to be downloaded, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then even if you share a view link, depending on what sort of file it is, it could still possibly be downloaded.
Yes, that's good to know. But I guess, for example, for sharing files to clients, if we wanted to send them reports or forms for
absolutely
or whatnot, we can give that an expiration date, and I'm pretty sure you get a notification, don't you? So when you've shared something and then somebody clicks on the link,
you do. Yeah, especially if you share it via using their email address. So if you, and that's a feature that's in the business OneDrive. Actually, can people put into the chat whether you're business or personal? Whether you might not know, you can say I don't know if I don't know, but just because it is actually, a lot of people are just using the personal OneDrive.
Yes.
not the Microsoft
That's
365 business version.
certainly the
So
way I started and then swapped to
yeah.
business.
And so really, if you want that extra control, that you can set up those, security profiles and things that determine what people can and can't do, that's where you've really got to move to business, because you don't have that with the personal account.
So it looks like most people are personal
And business, a bit of both.
Some are business only, one has both. So
that
so
might be something for another session that we could look at talking about, but
well, we might take a vote at the end of the session, because I know you do you could do a bit of Excel wizardry too, and of course Excel is something we all use, but a lot of us have just learned the basics to what we really need to get done, and there's a lot of functions that Excel has that, it's easy to miss. But anyway, we'll come back to that.
Absolutely.
So we've got a little bit more
Look, and to be honest, I prepared my Excel boot camp, and I've been using Excel for years, considered myself an expert. I write macros, all that sort of stuff, and I learned so much myself by preparing the boot camp. Things that were just, oh my God, moments. It was amazing. Things that I use every day now. And I thought, I can't believe I didn't know that.
Yeah, wow. Okay, you've heard it from the expert, so we could all still learn more.
We could do another one on that.
Might be good.
Top tips for Excel.
Talk to us about version history, and then we might we'll see where we're at for timing.
All right. Okay. Well, just something that is such an important reason for using a tool like OneDrive is that protection of your files that you don't necessarily get unless you're doing, really regular backups. Your version history means that every time you save your file, it is syncing with your OneDrive. And so you get, in the personal OneDrive world, there's 25 past versions of your file kept. And at any point you think, oh my gosh, I just corrupted that one, I modified the wrong one, I deleted something, you can go back to your OneDrive. If the file's still there, you can right click on it in your File Explorer or Finder and go to version history, and it will show you all the versions you've had. You can click the little dots, and I would just download to check out if it's the one you want. You download it, it goes into your downloads, check it out. If it's the one you want, you can reinstate it as the current. You've got a restore option if you're brave enough to just replace the latest, although it doesn't replace it, it just pushes it down the list so it becomes the not the latest. So that has been a godsend in so many cases where there's just that occasional Word document that corrupts or just something that happens, and to be able to go back through your version history is, one of the best reasons for using Microsoft 365. I'm just going to skip past this one because this gets into more complex territory. If you ever have problems, especially, it's been on Windows and Mac, where it's giving you strange messages about not being able to access your file. It can be to do with a particular setting in your OneDrive, to do with using Office applications to sync Office. I won't spend time on it now, but just keep in the back of your mind, if ever it's coming up and giving you a strange message that says that it's not able to find your file, save your file, do something, it could be to do with that setting, and turning that setting off may help you. So come back to the slideshow to look at that one later. I've only got two more things to talk about. Get the OneDrive app on your mobile, because it just means you've got your files wherever you go, and you can, just like you can on the computer. Just thinking about the scenario for all of us one day when we can travel, say you've got all your travel documents in your OneDrive, you can right click and not right click on your mobile device, you can tell it to keep all the files on your device, so that then when you're traveling overseas, and you've got no internet, all your files will be there and available to you, and others available via the internet if you've got the internet. So it's a great thing to have. But also your app lets you scan documents straight into OneDrive. So you can use the built-in scanner that's in the OneDrive app. It's just a big camera at the bottom in the center, and it allows you to just scan something straight into your OneDrive. Perfect.
Let's check that right now, because I didn't know about that.
It is. I tend to use some other scanning apps, but it's a really handy one to know about if you haven't got other scanning apps. And finally, and as I said, not the least importantly, OneDrive security. In my day-to-day life, because I deal with a lot of people who are not that savvy with technology, but even people who are savvy are guilty of this, using bad passwords, repeating the same password across multiple accounts. It is a massive no-no, because it is how people get hacked. If you want to secure your OneDrive, it must be a strong, strong password, and it must be a password you have not used anywhere else. Because if you think about all those phishing emails that come in asking you to click here and put in your email address and password, they're looking for that combination that they know people use. So I can't remember passwords, so I'll just use the same across all my accounts, and that's how they get hacked. Password must be good, but if you're storing confidential files, you must set up something else, and that is two-step verification, or called multi-factor authentication for your OneDrive. And that means if someone was to get your password, that is not enough, that you have to actually put in a second code that comes through to your phone, say, as a text, or even better, through the Microsoft Authenticator app. I use that for all my accounts, because when I do sign in, it just pops up a message, a notification, and I just hit approve to approve it. And I just make sure that it is saying it's my account and that it's me that's just signed in and all that sort of stuff. But it is just that extra line of protection. If for whatever reason your password ever got stolen, if you're ever wondering if your passwords got stolen, it probably has. If you go to the website called Have I Been PWNIN, I'll just put it up here actually. Let me just go to it on here. I'm just going to put up my web. Can you see my Safari there? So if I put in here, have I been pawned? Have I been PWNED? If I do my email address, I'm not going to do it, Lynette at ITN's Coffee, the pressure of typing in a session, and coffee.com.au. You can email me if you need me. That's my email address. Have I been pawned? Yep. So I have had my email address and probably password stolen from Canva. Oh, yeah, that was passwords. They got hacked, got stolen. Chat books, MyFitnessPal. All of there's heaps out there where places have been hacked, and so your details have been stolen. And if you use that password across everything else, so just that second line of protection through two-factor authentication, not just for OneDrive, for your email account, for your PayPal, for your eBay, for your everything, iCloud, Dropbox, everything that's got your information in it, that's got anything of value to you, financial, privacy, whatever, protect it with two-factor authentication.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's essential in our world. I mean, a lot of the government and software platforms that we have to interact with, it's compulsory, but not all of them are compulsory. And especially for something like OneDrive, where, you know, you might have a mixture of sensitive client information as well as your own personal information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. So talk us through that. How do we do that?
That's for another time.
Oh,
come and see me.
Is that an easy one for our settings, or to do through settings?
That is, look, in the personal settings, you actually, let me just show you on here. If I go to, I've still got that up, haven't I? You've got my web page. So if I go to if you've got, actually, if I do OneDrive.com, so say OneDrive.live.com. So that's my personal OneDrive. Well, not there. And so you'll see here, I'm about to sign in. It's going to pop up. So I'm just going to auto-fill that. That's one of my clients, so Lynette. Yep. That's me. Just a sec while I sign in. Next. And so here's an example where it might forget it. It might remember it for this one. Yeah, I told it to remember that one. You can tell it to remember on your computer. But where you go, most of your personal, it's very similar on actually, no, it's not that similar on business. It's a little bit more tricky to find on business. And I will say for business, it depends on the Microsoft 365 setup for your business. So a business I just helped that you saw before, they actually didn't have it enabled in their Microsoft 365 admin area. So I had to go in and enable it so that it could be used. So if you can't do it on your, I'd have to sort of find the link for that. I haven't got it written in my head right now because it's always complex to find it. But for the personal, for those of you with personal, click your photo up the top right, say view account, and you will find it. And this is the same across most things. Always think about that. Look for that little circle. It's often up the top right. Look for my account, something like that for any type of account. In this case, you've got security info and it's somewhere in there. Security info, I think it's under there. And so you can go through there and find your two-factor setup now. Yeah, I can't remember. I'll have to go back and check which one it is, but it's in one of those. So if you want me to send the link, I'd have to look it up and send it. I always have to go looking for it at the time I have to set it.
Well, I guess that makes sense that it's going to be in settings, you know, whether it's
in your settings. And it's a
so for anyone who hasn't set that up already, get onto that. And it's probably something that is easily searchable for anyway in Office Help if it's not been.
Yeah, see, mine's already set up, so it's showing me there what my, I'll have to go back and see what the actual link is. It might even be, is it security.microsoft.com? I can't remember. Yeah, it's different. I always have to go looking for it. And they move it every now and then as well. So just when you think you know, you don't. All right, so so I've just put up there, that's the page if you'd like, because I know we whizzed through that at 100 miles an hour. So there is the itandcoffee.com.au/AAT, a page that's just been set up for you you just put in your email address and we'll send you the slideshow or the link to the slideshow. We do this just to say we'll send you our newsletter, and if you don't want the newsletter you can unsubscribe, but it is a way of sort of keeping in contact with people like you, clients, and you know, people in business. And we do tips all the time. This week I'll be writing about this OneDrive issue that I've had. That's my article for the day that I'm going to be writing. So the newsletter that goes out once a fortnight will have problems that my clients are finding, you know, solutions, tips that have come up in my appointments, all that sort of stuff. So we've got quite a big subscriber base for that now. And so that's the last slide.
Great. All right. So let's see if anyone's got any questions in the last couple of minutes. If you've got any burning questions, feel free to put that in. And so, Lynette's got newsletter. She's got a club you can join, videos, all kinds of courses. There's heaps of stuff on her website. So if you're interested to get support from someone who gets our world, then check out Lynette.
And so gets women. We were talking about that before.
So we love the men in our world, but the reality is most of the bookkeepers are women, and you know, a lot of them really appreciate being looked after in the IT world by a fellow woman. So, you know, if that is something that you feel you'd really benefit from, then you know, connect with Lynette. So the link to the slides is earlier in the chat box. It is itandcoffee.com.au/AAT, but you will find that in the chat box. There you go. Lynette's put it in there again. Anne is asking a question. Can you only get to personal account via the online? I've just clicked on my cloud. Can't see how to access the account settings.
Yeah, you have to have an account. So you should see a sign in option there if you're not signed in, and you can create an account. You can create a free OneDrive account. You get 5 gigabytes for free. So if you want to try it out and you haven't got that much that you're going to share, then you create one. Go to, just if you want to do it via your web browser, go to live.com. Live.com lets you create a Microsoft account. That Microsoft account you can create using your own email address. That doesn't have to be a Microsoft email address, but sometimes it's worth actually creating an @outlook.com email address, because then it's another valid email address that you could use. So 5 gigabytes. Do the same for Dropbox. If you've got clients that work with Dropbox, you'll often find in business, you've got to have what your clients have. So if their world is talking Dropbox, you've got to have Dropbox. Get a free Dropbox account, get a free Google Drive, have your Google account as well. And then it's a similar principle for all of these things, that you have a web-based version to access that account and all the files, and you also can sync the files to your computer.
So Anne, maybe if you download the slides, the answers to your questions is earlier in the slides. Okay, you've got it, so that's cool. Okay, great. Okay, any other final questions or any requests for future topics? Because Lynette's got 10,000 things she could talk to us about that would be useful in our world, and looking at future tech talks for later in the year and next year. If anyone's got any other topics in this kind of world that you'd like to learn about, do let me know, whether that's my AAT email, jo.voigt@aat.org.au, or you can put some messages in now. Jess, interested in Excel? I am too, I have to say. I'm kind of a little bit like, oh, do I want to admit, like I could learn a lot more about Excel, but
it's okay. It's okay. You can. I admitted it.
But I think hearing your story, like you were already training people in it, and you were already, very well versed in it, and you still learned a lot more. So, I think
amazing
that
stuff, really
great. And
I'm happy to do my top 10 hit, tips type of thing, because there was some, but I just went, oh my God, how did I not know this? It's just, and it's such that some of them are such time savers. They're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even with all that our accounting software does for us now, we still have many occasions where we simply have to create something for our own needs, or we really do need to export reports to Excel and manipulate them in some way for the client.
Yes.
So, yeah. So,
we can even do a troubleshooting type of, or, how-to type of session.
I think the
potentially
top 10,
as well.
Time savers and things to make you go, wow. Would be great.
That's right.
Anyway, we are nearly out of time. We're not really getting more questions, I don't think. Let me just check the Q&A.
Google Drive's on the list.
Can we do one on Google Drive? Maybe that could be worth doing.
Just keep in mind, Google Drive, very similar. It's all the principles are similar.
Yeah, we've got quite a few Excel interested parties.
So, yeah.
So people, thanks for attending, everybody, and go and sign up for Lynette's newsletter. Go to that link to download the slides if you would like it, and we will see you next month.
Oh, we've got some more coming in the chat.
Coming in.
How to access zero MYOB data from Excel.
Well, I don't think that's possible in this world yet.
That'd be just export. That would be export.
Oh, maybe export
to CSV.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. And I was going to tell you who's on next month, and I have not got that list in front of me. I'm sorry, but that will be in the next newsletter, or probably in the current newsletter, so you probably know better than me. But anyway, we will see you next month. So thanks so much, Lynette, for your time and all your great information. And as usual, this will be up as a recording on the website as well within the next week or so. All right. We will say thank you and we'll finish up there. So see you next month, people.
See you later.
Bye.
Did you want to hang on, Jo? Or
I'll give you a ring.
Yep. Okay. All right. See you, everyone.